What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the Neighborhood Podcast. One of the hosts of the podcast. My name is Kyle Dabro. So, in this video, we're going to go over our Week 2 power rankings in the NFL. We'll start from number 10 and then work our way down to number 1. So, at the number 10 spot, I have the Buffalo Bills in Week 2's power rankings, simply just because I thought they got on track against the Miami Dolphins this past week. Granted, I didn't think Josh Allen had the greatest performance against the Dolphins in Week 2, but he was solid enough to get them by. And really, the focus here from week 2 with the Bills was their defense. They were able to shut out the Miami Dolphins last week. They were able to bring relentless pressure against Tua Tagovailoa. I mean, they brought pressure to the point where they cracked him on one of the sacks that they got, and he unfortunately had to leave the game. But even despite Tua being out of the game, the Bills adjusted very nicely defensively, and they were able to hold Miami in check the entire day. I still believe that Buffalo is the best team in the AFC East at this point. It is going to be a more competitive division than I think it has been maybe the last year or two. But as of right now, I think the Bills are still at the top spot in the AFC East, and that's why I have them at number 10. So at number 9, I have the Carolina Panthers. This is kind of a surprise for me here because I didn't expect much from the Panthers this season, simply just because I didn't know what Sam Darnold was going to offer for Carolina, just because he's had a rough start to his career when he was playing his first couple seasons in New York as a member of the Jets. But looking at what he's done with the Panthers so far, he's been fairly impressive. He's been efficient. He hasn't turned the ball over that much, and he's giving his team a chance to win. And not only that, Christian McCaffrey is healthy this year, and he's been solid so far. In week 2, they had a great performance over the New Orleans Saints. They won almost by 20 points, and the Saints were coming off of a huge win the week prior against the Green Bay Packers. So the one thing that I'm going to look forward to the most with this team is not the offense here, is whether or not the defense can perform like they did in week 2. Now, granted, they've played the Jets and the Saints so far, and they've only given up 21 points as a defense. If they're able to maintain that type of consistency throughout the season, I think they're going to be a much more competitive team than I thought, and they could necessarily bring the Bucks some sort of competition in the NFC South this season. So that's why I have the Carolina Panthers at number 9. At number 8, I have the Green Bay Packers. Look, the Packers had a terrible week 1. They lost by 35 points to the Saints, and they had to get back on track in week 2. And that's exactly what they did against the Lions. I thought Aaron Rodgers was phenomenal. I thought Aaron Jones on the ground and in the air thought he was good as well. Devontae Adams was back in the mix, and they just looked like a much better team than they did in week 1. It was a much well-rounded effort. Defensively, they shut out the Lions in the second half after giving up 17 points in the first half. So this was a win that Green Bay needed desperately. They get the trolls off their back. They get the noise surrounding them off their back after this week. But they do have some pretty good games upcoming in the next 2 weeks. They got to play the 49ers on Sunday night this week, and then they play the Steelers in week 4 after that. But by and large, Green Bay looked solid in week 2. Aaron Rodgers looked like his old self, and I think this team is going to be a competitive force in the NFC. So that's why I have them at number 8 in our power rankings. So for number 7, I have the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens had an extremely impressive win against the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday night this past week in week 2. To be quite honest with you, I was not expecting Baltimore to win this game. I thought the Chiefs would get the win over the Ravens here, but I got to say, Lamar Jackson was phenomenal in this game. He didn't have the best start. He had some turnovers in the first half because Tyrann Mathieu was just an absolute beast. He was a ball hawking beast in that game. But Lamar Jackson made some solid adjustments in the second half of that game, and he ended up getting the game-winning touchdown with about 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter that put the Ravens up by 1. And give the Ravens defense some credit. They were able to force some turnovers against the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes had one of his first interceptions ever in his NFL career in September, and Baltimore was the team able to do that. And then they were able to strip Clyde Edwards-Helaire at the end of the fourth quarter. Ravens pounced on it, and they were just able to run the clock out after that. So good win for Baltimore. Um, it gets them back on track after a really tough loss on the road to the Vegas Raiders in week 1. Look, the Ravens were my pick to win the AFC North this year. I still believe that to be the case despite all the injuries that they've had. So this is a huge win for them, and it does get them on that path. So that's why I have them at number 7. So at number 6, I have the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers are coming off of a pretty good win on the road against the Philadelphia Eagles. They're currently sitting at 2-0 right now. And when I look at the 49ers, they're a team that are definitely going to be in the mix for the NFC West, but they're going to have to play against teams like the Rams and the Seahawks. And those teams are going to be very competitive against them. So I have the San Francisco 49ers ahead of the Seahawks simply just because the Seahawks lost to the Titans last week. But the main thing for the San Francisco moving forward is I believe that their defense is going to have to step up in the weeks ahead, simply just because they're going through another injury bug season again. Their running backs cannot stay healthy. Raheem Mostert's out. A lot of their backups are dealing with injuries, and it's going to put a lot of pressure on that defense and Jimmy G on the offense to make some plays and make it happen for San Francisco this year. San Francisco is going to be a solid team this year. They're going to be a much better team than they were last year. They're off to a good start. Hopefully it stays that way. And that's why I have them at number 6 in the power rankings. At number 5, I have the Las Vegas Raiders. This was completely unexpected in my mind. I didn't think that Vegas was going to be able to beat the Ravens in week 1. And then on top of that, they go on the road to Pittsburgh in week 2. And they play a phenomenal game against the Steelers and get a really solid road win. Look, they're sitting at 2-0 right now. They're sitting at the top of the AFC West with the Denver Broncos. And it's really due to, in part, the resurgence of Derek Carr. Derek Carr has been phenomenal this year. He's been efficient. He's not throwing the ball in the harm's way. And he is making plays for the Raiders when they need it the most. Their defense really stepped up in week 2. They only held the Steelers to 17 points. So that's really going to be the issue with this team is the defense, because in years past, their defense has been very weak. They've given up a lot of points, and it's left the offense in a situation where they have to basically go score for score because their defense is not able to hold up with the rest of the team. So hopefully moving forward, the Raiders keep that defensive consistency. I think offensively, they're going to be fine. Derek Carr has been lighting it up with Darren Waller. Henry Ruggs had a really good game against the Steelers, and hopefully he continues to produce. It's a really good team, and I don't think a lot of people were expecting the Vegas Raiders to be this good this early, so I got to give them credit for that, and that's why I have them at number 5 in the power rankings. At number 4, I have the Kansas City Chiefs. Look, Kansas City played a really good game against Baltimore. It was a 1-point loss for them. And had Clyde Edwards-Helaire not fumbled that ball, I think there's a very good chance that Kansas City does win that game. But there are some issues of concern with this team, and it is on the defensive side of the ball. They have been giving up points. I mean, giving up 36 points against Baltimore, it's not a good look. I just mentioned the Raiders just a minute ago. Vegas's defense is not that good, and they gave up less points than what the Chiefs gave up. So I think the Chiefs are definitely going to have to figure it out on the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, they're fine. Granted, Patrick Mahomes had one bad interception in that Ravens game. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had that unfortunate fumble at the end of the game. Just cannot have that at the waning moments of the game. But by and large, I still think Kansas City is one of, if not the best team in the AFC. So I'm not too worried about them. But they do take a hit in this week's power rankings, and that's why I have them at number 4. At number 3, I have the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals just continue to roll. Kyler Murray's been sensational to start the season. And when I look at the Cardinals, it's like I mentioned with the 49ers. They're going to have to go up against some stiff competition with Seattle, San Francisco, and LA. And we'll get to LA in a minute. But Arizona is showing me that despite the fact defensively that they haven't played that well, I mean, they gave up 33 points against Minnesota, which is not necessarily the best look, but Kirk Cousins did play well in that game, so I'll give some credit to Kirk Cousins in that instance. But that's going to be the main thing with this team. It is not the offense I'm concerned with. Kyler's going to do his thing. They're going to light up the scoreboard, I would think, relatively easily moving forward. But it's whether or not the defense is going to be able to step up. Chandler Jones did not have the game that he had in week 1, where he had 5 sacks. So if they're able to establish a decent pass rush and they're able to get some turnovers, I think that'll be the best thing moving forward. But it is largely going to be the offense carrying this team this season, and the defense is going to have to be as best as they can to improve their standing in the NFC West. But they've been solid so far. They're 2-0, and I have them at number 3 in the power rankings. So at number 2, I have the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams had a solid road win against the Indianapolis Colts this past weekend. Look, this is, in my eyes, the best team in the NFC outside of the Buccaneers. They haven't moved in my power rankings from last week. There's not really much else for me to say than what I said about them from last week. Matt Stafford was solid once again. I thought defensively they played really well against Carson Wentz and Jonathan Taylor. They were able to hold the Indianapolis Colts to 16 points of offense. And I just think, by and large, the Rams are just a really well-rounded team. And they are going to have a really good matchup this weekend going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And that's going to be the game to really kind of decide for me whether or not, who's going to be the best team in the NFC moving forward. But as it stands right now, I have the Rams at number 2. And then at number 1, it's the same from last week. I had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at number 1. I thought Tampa was phenomenal against the Atlanta Falcons. The only point of concern with the Buccaneers moving forward is their defense. They were up 28-10 in this game against the Falcons. They give up 15 unanswered points to the Falcons in the third quarter that brought the score to 28-25. But Brady just lit up the Atlanta defense, and the Buccaneers defense at the end of the game, they were able to get 2 pick sixes that led to a 48-25 victory. Look, Brady's been phenomenal. I mean, he's had 9 touchdowns in 2 games. He's been efficient. He's completing 65 to 70% of his passes. And this team just continues to roll. I'm really kind of running out of superlatives to kind of describe Brady here, but he's a cyborg. He's just a psycho at this point because the guy's 44 years old, still getting it done, and he's playing at an MVP level right now. And I think that they're the best team in football, not just in the NFC, but they're the best team in the NFL. And like I said with the Rams, this matchup between LA and Tampa is going to be one good matchup this weekend, and it's definitely one that I'm going to be definitely paying attention to. But I have the Bucs at number 1 in this week's power rankings. So with that said, that'll wrap it up from here. If you guys like the video, hit that like button below. And if you guys want to support the channel in any way, shape, or form, hit that subscribe button below. Any sort of support that we can get for the channel, Kevin and I definitely appreciate it. Just to say it again, thank you guys for tuning in to watch the video, and we will see you guys later.